We need it.
Thanks, Charles, for letting me use your garden supplies. I'll make sure I put it back in the garage. Man, tending to that lawn is a lot of work.
Tell you the truth, Jim, I'm more concerned about keeping this house.
What's going on?
Well, you know, Sarah lost her job 2 months ago, right?
Yeah.
Since we lost that income, the bills have been piling up, and we're so far behind. I don't want to lose the house because of back taxes. I don't know what to do.
I understand. The same thing happened to my sister and her husband when he lost his job. Do you know that the Wayne County Treasurer has plans and programs to help people stay in their homes?
No, I didn't. Tell me about it.
Yeah, go to www.treasurer.waynecounty.com to see if you qualify.
What's that site again?
www.treasurer.waynecounty.com.
Got it.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another episode of The Week That Was. My name is Saeed Khan, broadcasting from a very Michigan March with the snow having returned, like the swallows from Capistrano. Yes,
we heard we heard you people were complaining about no snow, so we sent you some. You know.
Well, yeah, wait a minute. What do you mean by you people?
This is the true meaning of March Madness.
Yeah, are you talking about those springists and summerists? Is that who you mean, Nancy? Okay. Well, I hope wherever you are warm and firmly ensconced in someplace safe. And if not, still keep your eyes on the road. You don't need to be seeing our faces. We have joining us today one of the Troika. We have attorney Joel Sklar.
I'm in Troika.
Yes, I don't know what you did to the others, but you know, in your quest for Paris, this is not perestroika. So
he's putting in a new deck. I understand they poured some concrete in the last couple of days, so you know, we'll check there.
Well, we also have president of. Of course, it's a coincidence. We have president of BME Consulting and former director of Wayne County Public Services Department, Beverly Watts.
Good morning.
We have community and labor activist Barb Ingalls, veteran journalist Nancy Derringer, and of course, co-founder of Deadline Detroit, Allan Lengel. Well, you know, I remember watching my Macbeth, and there was double, toil and bubble. And now we have Trump stirring the pot again by warning of bloodbaths and 100% tariffs in his campaign speech. Is this going to be where we take this? That two things. First of all, that he's going to ramp up the rhetoric. And second of all, that the media will take the bait and cover it?
Yes and yes.
Of course.
Okay.
They should cover it, but they need to cover it differently. I mean, every time Biden stutters or, you know, stumbles or mispronounces a name or forgets something, then it's like, ooh, concerns raised over Biden's health. But then when Trump talks like a fucking dime store Mussolini, nobody says a word. I mean, you know, it's just covered like, you know, Trump calls for bloodbath or warns of bloodbath or whatever. I mean, it's insane. It's like, and I know exactly why this is happening. It's because editors are afraid of being called liberal or leftist or whatever. They've been working this con for 40 years now. And it's working. So why not?
Right. Yeah. They don't fact check him. They don't do anything. They want to race. You know, it's I hate to keep saying it's ratings, viewers, all of that. You want something that's interesting. Everything we do boils down to the sports woman or sportsman in us. And this is what you're going to see again. So they don't want to just, hey, okay, you know, Trump says this or the former president says this and all this rhetoric. They want interest, and they want the sportsmen in us to come out and make this a race, one that no one wants to see.
Yeah. Well, I will say they do fact check him. They'll say, you know, he again repeated without evidence or false claims or whatever. But it doesn't matter. I mean, that stuff just is just,
yeah, it's not widely,
like,
it's not equally played out as if
yeah.
maybe Biden maybe misspoke like all of us do and Trump does, or maybe he has a little skip. It's not given the same kind of ambiance.
Yes.
I think yeah, go ahead, Joe.
The New York, I'm sorry. The New York Times tripled their readership when Donald Trump was president. I mean, Donald Trump saved the New York Times. Donald Trump
And the Washington Post.
and the Washington Post.
And
Donald Trump
CNN.
saved television news because horrified, the half of the country that didn't vote for him just flocked for news. And instead of seeing the fact that people wanted the real truth, they just went, oh, Donald Trump headlines, Donald Trump sales. And they're addicted to him and they can't get off him.
Yeah.
I think it's also, I mean, the standards are so low. He has rewritten what our expectations of a presidential candidate is, that he can say anything. And when he, when we repeat this line all the time, when he says, I could shoot someone on Fifth Avenue or whatever, and I wouldn't lose a voter. And it's true. And I mean, look, Richard Nixon had an affair with, Stormy Daniels. The Republicans would have said, hey, you got to drop out. You can't run for president.
I mean, look at a big step up.
Everything from attacking John McCain as saying my heroes are, people who don't get caught, attacking the Pope. Yeah. I mean, he's done everything, and his cult following is just, they're still there.
Yes. Right. Can you imagine a previous or any candidate for president of the United States saying something like, the black voters can really relate to me, when they see my mugshot. I'm going to really get more black voters. I'm coming out with this gym shoe. Can you really imagine that?
They love sneakers, don't they?
Right, exactly. I mean, the bar is just he's broken the seal on it. It's unimaginable. It really is like a dream.
Yeah, it seems to be like, I look at Trump like a 1930s mobster in those movies, where this is what he does. And he's an extortionist. And I think part of what he's doing is he really means there's going to be either you vote for me or there is going to be a bloodbath. I would take him at his word on that, because I think he wants a bloodbath if he doesn't win. I think he wants things to fall apart if he doesn't win. And so I think when he says bloodbath, it's literal. It's not metaphorical. I think it's something that he would like to see if he loses. He is take it all down with him, man. He's a 1930s monster.
He's Solomon.
That's everything. So
pulling down the temple.
Just accepting what he says. The reality
Emperor
is he means it.
They played the tape, I think it was on January 7th recently, when he came out and said, oh, we have to have law and order, and you people aren't right, and now he's like, you people are heroes, I'm gonna pardon you on the first day and stuff like that. It's like clearly he did not want to say anything that was negative against the demonstrators, the rioters, whatever you want to call them. But it's really, and Nancy's right. I mean, the media has to figure out a way how to cover the guy, except, just not like, whatever he says is an being a microphone for him to say the craziest shit without challenging the scariness of this.
At this point, go ahead. Who?
Please.
Okay. At this point, though, I don't think it even matters. I think we have reached a point now where everyone gets their news from their own preferred outlet. If you're a hardcore Trumper, you don't care how the New York Times describes him, or the Washington Post, or any other, evil MSM publication. You're just. I was looking at Twitter the other day, and I saw a former journalist exalting over the death of AP, or the coming. I was going to say AP is not dead. The Associated Press is not dead, but they were dealt a very serious blow this week when the entire Gannett chain announced they would no longer be buying. They would no longer be part of the Associated Press co-op, which means no more AP copy in any Gannett paper, which includes the Detroit Free Press. And this person was saying, wow, this is great. Let's drive another stake into the heart of the mainstream media. I mean, it's just so. I mean, never mind. But
well, isn't this
We'll Google it, right?
So Nancy, you're saying that Princess Kate and her purloined photoshopped photo is bringing down AP?
No, not exactly.
Because I think AP has said that they're no longer going to accept photos from Buckingham Palace. So
Well,
yes.
really,
Oh,
they're not.
no,
It's like they're
finish
not
my
buying that
pearls.
crap anymore.
As a person,
Well,
go ahead.
go ahead.
No, I used to. One of my jobs at the newspapers was to we took in all of the raw photos from both editorial departments, and we prepared them for publication. And it was strict what you had to do. You know, you had to convert the photos to the dot gain to the paper, so it didn't bleed, right? So you did darks and lights, and we had to own it. So certain things, but it was so limited, and we weren't even allowed to crop it without permission from the editorial boards. I mean, nothing got through that wasn't sent there to do it. You know, there was no altering the pictures. There was no moving like a hand to get to a face. None of that stuff. It was real. Most newspapers still took that very, very, very seriously. Right. You know, and for all those papers to take a picture edited by Kate Middleton, just it's like all over, you know, whatever, however many toning booths are left in the empire, just went.
I remember when a photographer was either fired or suspended or severely disciplined for taking a can of Diet Coke out of a picture. The person was the subject of the photo was sitting and had a table next to them, and there was a Diet Coke can on it, and it kind of marred the picture. It was a better picture without the can. So he just took it out, a harmless Photoshop edit, and it was like, we don't do that. You know, newspapers, you know, we can occasionally burn and dodge in the dark room to, you know, make faces pop a little better, to look better in reproduction, but we do not alter the essential reality of a photograph.
Exactly.
Was that Nancy? Was that by any chance the Atlanta Journal-Constitution? Because I could see them not wanting the Diet Coke out of the picture.
No, it wasn't. But I don't remember which one it was. But it was anyway. But
well, the fact that Trump goes ahead and tells his minions that he's going to put 100% tariff on Chinese cars made in Mexico coming into the United States. I mean,
that's a very easy pledge to make, because there are no Chinese cars made in Mexico. Are there any Chinese?
No, I think there are. I think they're making parts there right now, but they're making auto.
But they're parts. Like American car brands, aren't they?
Or I think for American brands, but I think they're
electric.
I think there is some. Yeah, there is some intention of manufacturing in Mexico. I think everybody is. I mean, Ford Motor Company, I think, produces like 400,000 cars a year in
well, you know, yeah, Joel.
Yeah, just in his last, I just read, I thought it was the New York Times, that they did an analysis of his tariffs, and that they caused $230 billion or more in losses to us, that we were damaged by the tariffs. The tariffs are a god-awful idea. Again, this guy preaches to the simpleton, and he's giving real, simple answers to things that really don't correlate and are not going to get what he's looking for. It's not going to achieve the result that he says they're going to achieve. But the tariffs is a god-awful idea. They've always been awful. They're awful still, especially the way he's going to do it, which is arbitrary.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, well, here's a little bit of a segue. I'll try. But when we're talking about Trump and money, raising money, we have this little commercial. This is straight up.
I'm humbly asking every pro-Trump patriot watching this video to please chip in just $5 to my father's campaign before the end of month deadline. My dad's campaign isn't powered by liberal billionaires. It's powered by grassroots contributors.
It's one of our new advertisers.
It's $5. In the 80s, we used to call those cocaine eyes.
Yeah, definitely. That guy's got everything short of one of those little like reinforcements for notebook paper, like at the bottom of each nostril.
I mean, his campaign is funded by grassroots despots around the world. I think that's true. But I mean, getting back to the media coverage, this week looks like Trump is suing ABC for defamation for George Stephanopoulos allegedly referring to him as a rapist, not someone who committed sexual assault, even though the judge in the E. Jean Carroll defamation case said that this looks and sounds like rape. And I mean, Joel, as the sole lawyer on the panel today, this all falls on
We're
you.
lawyers in our head.
Yeah. I mean, there is no way. I mean, listening to the clip, I mean, at best, Stephanopoulos, it was a slip up. But even if it isn't seen as a slip up, there's no way this could prove New York Times malice. I mean, the higher standard.
Substantial truth is close enough to win. If it's substantially true and you have a court saying it is substantially true, he's going to lose. This isn't he knows he's going to lose against Stephanopoulos. It's just another, attempt to intimidate journalists from talking about the truth about Trump.
I think we should do a correction.
Because he's never going to win. He knows he's not going to win. It's an absurdity, but that's what he's doing.
I think as somebody who's had a lot working in Detroit News and the Washington Post, where I had a lot of stories lawyered before they were published. I mean, first of all, when you're a public figure like Trump, the bar is so high to really, and then there's an allowance of hyperbole, which is not really that great a hyperbole when you think of what he was found in a civil suit. There's no way that a jury would say, "Oh my God, you said rape, but it's sexual assault." There's no way the bar. He's got nothing there.
There's no malice. It's not going to get any place. It's not that purpose. It's more theater to again intimidate journalists from writing bad things about Trump.
And yet, I was listening to a local AM radio station that had a lawyer from a major firm on. And they actually made it sound as though he has a case. I'm like, wow. I mean, how desperate does one need to be to just be on the air and yammer on? Allan.
I from some experience from Deadline Detroit and stuff, there are lawyers out there who know nothing about media, First Amendment law, and they threaten, and some of them file lawsuits without, and we've dealt with several of them who know nothing about what the standards are, and they saber rattle and they threaten. And we had one guy who was, the Hitler, a guy was saluting, doing high Hitlers in the Birmingham School District. His lawyer, who had no clue about libel law, sued, and he sued 5 organizations, including Deadline Detroit, Metro Times, Newsweek, and the judge threw it on in summary judgment. Our lawyer told the guy, "You have no case," and he proceeded anyways.
If it's a local law lawyer talking about First Amendment law and his name isn't Herschel Fink, you don't have to pay any attention to it because they have no idea what they're talking about. Actually, George Stephanopoulos should do a clarification at the beginning of his next show, and he should say,
I think he probably will. Yeah,
I think he should say something like, "We wish to clarify some information that was given in a previous show. E. Jean Carroll did indeed testify that she felt some part of Mr. Trump's body penetrating her vagina, but she couldn't tell whether it was one of his stubby little fingers or his stubby little penis. And so we can't exactly, because that's kind of like, you would think if it was a penis, you could tell the difference between that and the finger. But, let's just say I trust Stormy Daniels. So there we go.
Yep.
Yeah.
Roll of lifesavers, certs. I mean, and all of the above.
Tic Tac.
And by the way, I'm still trying really hard to get the Richard Nixon Stormy Daniels image out of my head.
Well, Stormy, we've got some work to do.
when the president does it,
it's not a crime.
No.
So speaking of the needs that that Trump has on the Maslowian hierarchy of needs, one would be an endorsement, and it looks like for some shocking reason, former Vice President Mike Pence has decided he's not endorsing Trump. I mean, the fact that he was harangued, the fact that he was almost killed, the fact that Trump was telling him, you know, you'd better do this for me, otherwise you're not going to have any future in the Republican Party. It looks like Mother finally got Pence to do something.
The threshold is very high for abuse among his followers, you know, and you're right. I mean, all the things that were going on is just amazing. It took this long for him to finally say, I just can't do it. I mean, what an abusive relationship that was.
Did you?
I still was surprised that he came out and made that announcement, giving all of that, because I really never looked at him as having, you know, a lot of courage. So I was
correct.
Really, a lot of courage. You know? So I was really surprised that he came out and even made that statement. Honestly.
Yeah, I mean, he could have backpedaled, or he could have, you know,
could have done what
diverted the
He could have said nothing and just disappeared into the mist of history. He did. You got to give him that. Not easily.
Nancy, I know you're displeased with us mocking a term that is used in Western Ohio and the northeastern Indiana as far as the term mother to refer to wives. But don't you think it would be appropriate that the conversation went something like this, with Pence and his wife saying, "Mother, do you think I should give Trump the nod?" sung to Pink Floyd. You know?
You know, Mike Pence has always been such an empty suit, and it drives me crazy when people refer to him as, you know, former governor, former congressman. He indeed was a former governor, former congressman, and he does have a law degree, but he made his money. I've said this before on this show. He was a talk radio host. I mean, his law practice was just some taxes, or, you know, some fairly low pressure, not exactly high profile sort of area, but he got this 5-day-a-week job on the Indianapolis talk station, and that's where he made his bones. That's how people knew who he was to vote for him. I mean, he was on his way to becoming a one-term Indiana governor as well, because nobody liked him there, and that's saying something in Indiana. He's exactly like Dan Quayle in that he's kind of like, he looks the part, you know, as Trump would say, he looks like he came out of central casting, but he's, you know,
exactly.
About a year or two into Trump's presidency, I realized that I kept looking at those pictures of Trump of Pence looking at Trump. He always had those beaming eyes and that big smile, and he was always looking at him with that look of eagles. And I realized that is the exact same look that Nancy Reagan used to look at Ronnie with. Remember how she always used to stare at him with this like adoration in her eyes? It's like it's the exact same thing. But anyway.
We do have a video of somebody who is still going to endorse Mr. Trump.
No MAGA faithful has fallen softer on harder times than the My Pillow man, Mike Lindell, who may be out of money, but he is not running low on crazy life stories.
But through all that time, I had over 14 near-death experiences. I'd be in Mexico on a family vacation, and they're going to cut my head off the cartel. And the guy's cutting my head off. He goes, "He's ready to cut my head." I go, "I'm not going to buy this sword." And the other guy goes, "Senor, he doesn't want to sell you a sword. He wants to cut off your head." And I go, "What's wrong with you?" You know, but they're going, "What's wrong with this guy's loco?" He wants to, you know, but it was just deflection and. What did I do when I got out of that? I went and did another line of cocaine. You know?
It's a family vacation.
He's back on it. He's hitting the pipe again. I don't care what anybody says. That guy is the total pipe hitter. I don't care what you say.
He's too much.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are joined with the second of the lawyer troika. We have Steve Fishman. We won't be here.
Always welcome.
I'm an internet genius. I was just absolutely brilliant.
All right.
I called my wife. She told me what to do, and the next thing you know, it was working.
All right.
You can blame it on the snow.
What was the issue? What was the issue?
Now, Lengel, I have a flip phone. I went to Mumford.
I asked him, I said, do you have a hotspot?
It's Purple Rain. I don't know what the issue was.
I said, do you have a hotspot on your phone?
He doesn't know what that is.
How can you have a hotspot on a flip phone? I don't even know what that is.
I forgot.
Anyway, where were we?
So
Mike Lindell getting his head cut off and then doing a line of coke.
Yeah.
Seriously.
So actually here's the question. Since you've joined us at a very opportune time. I want predictions, 2 of them. Will Oakland University make it past this weekend? And will Trump, after the weekend, get his money to post bond?
The first one, if you got any idea of what's going to happen in these basketball games, you're a lot smarter than me. I think what you guys are seeing real quick, when the great players go to the league so quickly, you don't have dynasties anymore, and anybody can beat anybody. And if you have a great shooter, like that kid obviously was, you know, you got a chance to beat anybody. As for the second thing, I was really hoping Bill's just on the break. Maybe he can chime in somehow. Or no, Joel knows because Joel's a civil guy. What is at the end of the day, if he doesn't post the whole bond, what happens, Joel?
They execute. You know, you start executing, you get rich, you start executing. You can take property, assets, whatever the hell he's got. And my guess is that a lot of his real estate is already so highly encumbered. You know, he probably has so much fucking debt that even if you were to seize the asset, there's so many secured lenders, God knows what it's worth, but they can try to get every asset he has, bank accounts, whatever the asset, wherever the asset is.
Do they have to be assets that he had declared before that are part of the complaint, or can they be any asset?
There are any assets. He is now collectible. You know, he is collectible, so it seems, maybe not. Who knows? But
so
start executing now.
Why is nobody talking about getting his plane?
I don't think his plane is worth shit. That plane doesn't move. Anything.
Yeah,
but he uses it. He uses it constantly.
Yeah, it's just on a tarmac and it doesn't do anything. But
you have to be fumigated.
He's a plane, have at it. But I
think Henry Ford Museum. Henry Ford could buy that and put it in there.
No, Allan. Actually, I think it would be really good as an intermediary between the Ark and the Creation Museum. Because I think 6,000 years ago, Boeing 757s shared the sky with pterodactyls. So,
can we? I guess it's too bad that his kids are all legal adults, or we could take Ivanka, you know, as a spoil of war kind of thing. So,
yes, Barron is now 18 and quote unquote fair game, according to some journal.
Yeah, it didn't do much for me, but
yeah. So because
Barron, they gotta leave Barron alone. I like Barron.
Well, because
I have a feeling Melania is always telling Barron, "Your father's an asshole.
You're nothing like him.
Yeah,
don't be like your father."
Talking about how someone looks at his dad, you ought to see how he looks at his dad.
Well, because of his height.
He looks down on his dad.
Because of his dad, he can look down on his dad. Well, one more thing dealing with Trump. Pro-Trump attorney Stephanie Lambert turned herself in and has been mugshotted, arrested after thousands of confidential Dominion emails seem to have leaked out into the public discourse. And by the way, she is grinning from ear to ear in her mugshot. So, in how much trouble is Miss Lambert?
Her quote is, "I know too much." That's what she said in court.
Yeah, I think that she was kind of a normal person a number of years ago, like a normal lawyer. And I think like so many of the Jim Jones, you know, they drink the Kool-Aid. And I mean, what you said, Barb, is it's amazing to hear something like that. I mean, I know too much from who is it that's all upset about all the things she knows? And if she knows as a lawyer, as any of these lawyers, whoever they are, if they really had any of the stuff they say they had, how did they manage to lose? What was it, Joel? 61 cases in a row?
Over.
I mean, we all have to keep in mind, we talk about this all the time. The courtroom, whatever criticisms people have, the judge this, the lawyers that,
But in the courtroom, generally, you get pretty damn close to the truth. And if any of us were going to court, if you, Barb, said, you and Beverly have a case and you come to Joel and I, and we say, okay, what facts do we have to back this case up? And you start going, we're not going to court. If we had facts. And when we sit with you in our office, we're going to say to you, ladies, we really would love to take your case. There's only one problem. We don't have any goddamn evidence with which to go forward. And that's what is going on with these things. So for
really,
people
I think
to
we
say,
should be insulted.
no, but I mean, to say I know too much, you don't know shit, obviously, because if you really know something that's a fact, present it to a judge, and the next thing you know, you actually might win the case, you know?
Right.
So
right.
anytime you see that.
Joan of Arc, and that's the problem.
I get the feeling that she's watched one too many like Julia Roberts starring legal dramas where, you know, she runs through a parking garage in stiletto heels, you know, and there's, you know, there's the Pelican, what is it? The Pelican Brief, or, you know, some whoever that guy is that writes the legal thrillers.
John Grisham.
Yeah. She thinks that she's in a John Grisham book, and that, you know, and she's imagining how she'd be described, you know. Although full-figured, she carried a lushness that belied her, you know, that enhanced her femininity. You know, she's just walking around thinking that's who she is.
No, she's having her moment. You can see it. She's having her moment.
Yeah. Well, it was smart of her to smile in her mugshot, because she knew that it would be everywhere, and she might as well look halfway decent. So
because she knows too much.
She knows too much. Yeah.
Well, also, and Barb will attest to this. You know, if you smile for the camera, I know I'll love you better.
Oh, here we go. At least he's now quoting somebody decent, some group decent, not these brand new groups that nobody ever heard of. Steely Dan, that's pretty good.
Steely Dan is definitely very good.
That's music there.
But she's also, isn't she also, lawyers, going to face penalties because she is the one who leaked the Dominion emails, which were supposed to be sealed to one case, to crazy Dar Leaf up in Berry County, who thinks he's found a smoking gun, because it turns out that they have employees in Serbia. So, you know, that was obvious. And they were emailing with them on election day, which obviously means that the Serbians are in on this. And, you know,
she didn't think about all of that.
Yeah, exactly.
No, Joel and I can tell you one other thing. That's exactly true, Nance, what you just said. And when these folks start doing what they're doing, you know, the Bar Association has ways of going after you. And since you make a living as a lawyer, neither Joel or I would want to be suspended for a year, right, where you can't work. And these are the same kinds of things. The courtroom is there to resolve things. The Bar Association is going to resolve it too. And she's going to have to come in there with some reason that somehow is going to sound honorable to them as to why she leaked that stuff, and they're gonna smack her. You know, this is what happens.
There's also a protective order. You know, I'm sure she violated a real clear protective order, so she can be held in contempt, sanctioned for that. So she's got a whole litany of issues she better start thinking about. And her license is precarious at this point. I mean, she's.
But I'm sure the former president has told her not to worry about anything. Don't worry. Don't worry about anything. I got you.
Well, this is also in state court. I mean, it's over in Oakland Circuit, so she can't wait for her knight to come in on a steed with a pardon.
That's right. And when it comes to the Bar Association, the president, nobody can do anything about that. It's
remember, she's drinking the Kool-Aid. You think she's going to believe that? He's going to tell her, "I got you." Okay.
Yeah, she's not a flattering mugshot. I mean,
she's all right. I mean, you know, I always feel bad when I make fun of somebody's looks, although sometimes
I wasn't making fun of her.
No,
I wasn't making fun of her looks. I was making fun of her smarts. She doesn't look smart.
I thought I thought it looked okay. I thought she looked okay. But,
all right.
So
I'm looking it up. So
you're looking up. Okay.
Well,
but on a serious note, you know, we were talking about the president, former president, looking for money from different places and whether or not this is going to be a negotiation when he's in office. He's upsetting China with the whole tariff thing. At the same time, we now learn that U.S. troops have been and are currently stationed in Taiwan. Not only is that going to be somewhat problematic to say the least, but what about a scenario where if China or some Chinese source gives Trump money, and if he were to become president, that all of a sudden those troops would be out of Taipei?
We're in such uncharted waters now. It doesn't. I mean, go ahead, Steve.
No, I mean there's nothing. If we've learned anything, there's nothing that's too outlandish for him to pull off. I'm in the process of reading this month's, I guess it is, New Republic, and they have a whole section on what the Trump cabinet might look like. And I mean, you know, with Stephen Miller, by the way, as chief of staff. Can you imagine that guy?
Yeah.
And if you get a chance, you guys should read it, because it really is down. At the beginning, they start out kind of making a joke about it, but when they get into the actuality of it all, it could easily happen. That guy that, you know, from the AG's office, remember, that was Jeffrey Clark was going to take over as attorney general if those guys wouldn't have threatened to leave. That guy could get appointed attorney general. And the Republicans are marching in lockstep. If the Senate turns Republican, they'll authorize the guy.
In his first term, he wanted to make his personal pilot the head of the FAA. Because, you know, he liked him, you know, and he can fly a plane. What else do you need to be able to do? You know,
well, I'm saying, take the plane. We got to take the plane. Well, Bloomberg reported that Vivek Ramaswamy is on the short list for DHS secretary.
Oh,
wow.
God, that yapping little chihuahua of a man. I just can't imagine. But
it's in the New Republic, the same thing, by the way. That's part of that article with Ramaswamy.
And Marco Rubio is on the short list for VP, which is just unbelievable.
I thought he didn't like Marco.
Yeah, well,
I thought it was going to be a woman. I know that Kristi Noem had the governor of South Dakota. Is that how you pronounce her name? Had her teeth fixed, and she apparently had some bad choppers, and so she had the cosmetic dentistry done to give her like this beaming smile. And it's pretty obvious that she's preparing for her own close-up. So I thought
don't say that. You're going to make Tim Scott cry. He's been sucked up. Laying all on him and tell him he loves him. Come on now. He is the front runner.
He'll have to get rid of the white girl too. He'll get rid of the white girl. Go back to the
well,
way
it's
he was
either
living
good.
before.
It has to be either a woman or a person of color. And I think that Tim Scott probably, like you said, he's probably up there. He's that guy. Yeah. So
he's made all this declaration.
He won't pick Tim Scott. First of all, he sees Tim. I mean, Tim Scott has been such a suck up. Trump probably sees him as weak for being that big of a suck up. And Trump is a racist. Not going to pick a black person.
There was some talk that he didn't want during the first term. He didn't want Nikki Haley to be given some chief of staff or something like that. And because apparently, like a lot of people of South Asian bloodline, she has these blotches on her skin. I mean, they're not real obvious, but just, you know, if you probably saw her without makeup, you would notice them. I mean, it's no big deal. She's an okay looking person.
No, you see them with makeup on. You see them.
You do see him. Well, he said, nah, she's got those blotches on her skin. I don't want her in here. You know, like I have to look at a woman with blotches on her skin. Oh my God. So anyway.
Steve.
Yeah.
I think when we talk, I keep bringing this up all the time, but when you're talking about Donald Trump, like for instance, you're saying, oh, Rubio, he called him this kind of name. What he likes more than anything is people who suck up to him after they've criticized him and blah, blah. He's that kind of a bully, and he gets pleasure. He gets nachas, as we would say in Yiddish, out of people coming back to him. All of these people are doing it. Mitch McConnell, look at this. Does Mitch McConnell not recognize? This is a guy who called his wife Chow Chow, for God's sake. And you're going to go in there and you're going to kiss his behind? That is insane. Ted Cruz kissing his behind, claimed his father was part of the Kennedy assassination.
Right.
Look
at Mitt Romney after he won. Mitt Romney basically told me he was a piece of shit. And then he's like, hey, I'd like that State Department, Secretary of State job. And he loved it. He brought him in, and then it was bam.
If I was Heidi Cruz, I would inform my husband that we have had our last sex. And
that was probably a long time ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, she probably said that many years ago.
2 kids. Okay, that's it.
How old is the youngest daughter?
You're gonna have to use something else.
That's how long.
Yeah, I think Nancy, that might have been before Cancun.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
long before that. Well, it looks like there's a actually, I mean, maybe that's where Bill is. If we wanted to go ahead and start a rumor on this one, Bill, if you're still listening, it looks like there's going to be an upcoming vacancy on the Michigan Supreme Court, as Justice David Viviano has said he's not going to seek re-election. Is Bill filing papers?
He'd be a good judge.
Bill
who
did
are
run
some
for judge.
high-profile,
He ran for
Republican
judge.
lawyers who,
Yeah.
who
Steve.
feels? Go ahead.
Well, there's a couple things. Right now, here's my guess. David Viviano is a conservative guy. He happens. I know him pretty well. He's a really good guy, but he's got different political views than we do. And I think what happens when you're sitting on a court like that, it's kind of like the United States Supreme Court. You get tired of writing dissents. You get tired of always being in the minority. You get tired of never having anything that goes the way you want it to be. And David's still young enough to do other things. It's not, it's not like he's 100 years old. And I honestly believe he'd probably say so if somebody asked him. I think that's probably what's motivating him to go do something else. He's from a family of public servants. His dad, his sisters, a lot of them are judges. I don't think it's about money. I just think my guess is he was probably getting frustrated. It's 6-3 now. No, wait, 5-2 there. We have 7, right? 7. Yeah, 5-2. And, you're just in the minority all the time, and you can write your nice little dissents, but really you kind of stick to yourself and say, what am I doing this for? I'll go find something else to do. That would be my guess, but I don't know.
Probably, yeah. You just get tired of tilting the windmills and, like you said, writing dissents. So.
Yeah, and he's young enough, so we'll see what big nonprofit or big anything he can get. It'll be something good. You're right, because he has a good.
He's a very good guy. He really
very
is.
smart.
So conversely, none of you want to run so you can write concurring opinions?
I think we're a tad old for that. You got to step down at 70. You cannot run for office for judicial office once you've hit 70. And a number of Joel and I's friends and associates are all done because they're 71, 72. It's not like they're 100, but they're done.
And I'll tell you, just to give the Eastern district, that bench has been wonderful. I mean, I practiced here for 30 years now, almost 40, and it is just a wonderful place to practice. It really is. I think, Steve, if you've had the same experience, but our Eastern district, we're very fortunate.
I tell people that all the time. The lawyers are fortunate. The litigants are fortunate because other than one, I won't name who that person is, everybody leaves there with the feeling that at least their side of the story has been heard, even when guys have to go to prison. The judges, our judges in the Eastern District, whether they were nominated by Republicans or Democrats, they're real judges and they're real people, and they pay attention and they care about what's in front of them. And that's what you're looking for as lawyers. When you agree, Joel, that's all we want.
Absolutely. And as soon as somebody, if any of you guys walked in that court, you would feel it. You can immediately feel the weight of it, that you're in a very special place. And I think it is a special place. And I would encourage people to go to courtrooms, see what happens, get a feel for what really the law is and how these things really shake out. And I think you'd be amazed and also impressed because things are dealt with such, sobriety. And the judges are just, in this district, just bright, and their staffs are bright. It's just a really wonderful place to practice. I'd encourage people to go because you'll have some faith in the justice system, at least from this district.
Just don't go down to Florida and don't go down to Florida in front of Judge Eileen Cannon. That's not what Joel's talking about.
She's the anomaly.
We're talking about real judges.
but Joel, isn't it easier nowadays since it's only 30 minutes to Wapner? I can just be at home.
Judge Judy. There's justice.
There's justice for you. So it looks like some justices at 2 different levels are having a bit of a tiff. Supreme Court, the U.S. Supreme Court, allowed Texas to have SB 4 stand so that state officials could enforce immigration law. But then almost immediately after, an appeals court went ahead and blocked it again. My understanding was that immigration law was supposed to be handled at the federal level. I mean, is this more dangerous than we're really understanding, that the Supreme Court is being this deferential to the states in giving what had been, as I said before, historically the domain of the federal system.
Well, if you think about it, in let's say the pre-Civil War society, okay, if the Supreme Court told the southern states you can do whatever you want with respect to quote immigration, or they would call it slavery, which is what they would talk about. The whole notion of our government is based on the fact that certain things are within federal jurisdiction and are not left to the devices of the state. And I did read, by the way, Joel, I don't know if you saw this, they had oral argument, I think it was yesterday, I read in the Washington Post today, of the three judges, one clearly thought that it was ridiculous that Texas could do this, but one other one, according to what I read, sounded like, I think it was he was on the side of the state. So who knows?
Yeah, I didn't read I mean, I wish Bill were here because I'm sure he would read the opinion, thoroughly and give us a better explanation. But it is all the federal government has always had authority over borders, over with foreign countries. This is an absurdity that Texas is going to usurp the power of the federal government, and that the U.S. Supreme Court authorized it. It's dangerous. What are we going to do? Is Michigan going to have its own policy in regard to Canada? Are we going to start doing that?
And
are other states
exactly
at border? It's fucking. It is an absurd idea, and it's well settled law. So I don't understand exactly how they could.
Didn't this come out of the crackpot Fifth Circuit? Wasn't this? Isn't that? Aren't they the ones who were the last court to rule on this before it went to?
No, they're the ones that issued the injunction to begin with, right? That kept them from enforcing it. And it's in the Fifth where they're having the hearing right now. Okay. And as I say, I only read about two of the judges that were doing a lot of the talking during the oral argument. It was the Supremes, though, Nance, that turned it back around. But the Fifth Circuit had stayed it until they decided it.
Okay.
They said, you're not going to be able to do it. Let us decide it, which is fairly normal. I mean, we've all had cases like that. But
the rise of state rights is just terrible.
States' rights. We've heard that before, haven't we, Beverly? We've heard that phrase before.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
States' rights.
It's bailed for all sorts of shit. And
you're gonna have different bathrooms. You got to sit in the back of the bus. We'll be back to that.
Right.
Those were the good days. That's what
right.
I mean, that's the attitude of the Republicans. Those were great days in the 50s.
Great days.
Make America great again. Yeah. Where's my ring at?
We're gonna bring back chattel slavery because then everyone will have a job.
Absolutely.
Yeah, right.
And don't forget now. Don't forget. We were happier then.
Yeah,
that's right. People worked hard, but
we were happier.
They were housing,
wonderful. We were happy.
Those are a terrible thing.
Right.
Women were happier when they stayed at home and ate Valium by the fistful to try to get through their days.
Right. We just don't know any better.
I think one of the things that just depresses me about this modern life, though, right now, is that it's just, if you know any history at all, this country, for better or for worse, was founded and run by people that came here from somewhere else, and they came on a slave ship. They came at the point of a knife. They were loaded into boats from England because the British wanted an entire island to themselves. They came for horrible, terrible reasons. They came to build the railroads they came to pick the fruit.
They came to escape starvation in India or in Ireland. Yes. And a lot of other places.
And this is and they're coming because we could not stop fucking with the governments in Central America.
Yeah.
They came, it just, our lack of knowledge of history is what's going to kill us in this country. This is so important. And and when people talk, it makes me want to cry.
Right.
And then you have the people who are like, well, you're all colonialists. It's like, I woke up here, man. I don't know. None of this. We gotta somehow get on this, because it breaks my heart the way that we talk about people. And I hate to be serious right now, but
no, you're absolutely right.
No, you're right. You're right, Barb.
And you're right, Barb.
It blows my mind. And if we don't start teaching people the genuine history, and we don't have to be ashamed.
Exactly.
I can't help it, right? But I want to know that, because we have to take where we are at this exact moment, and we have to move on from that.
And that's when united.
Look, Barb, I mean, We had to leave England. We had to fly coach on British Airways, and we landed here, and disco started. I mean, you know.
No, you broke me, Saeed.
No, it is. I agree. I mean, look, this country has. I mean, America has done a lot of amazing things, but it also, I mean, it does have some, you know, slavery, Native Americans. Look, Henry Ford, one of the greatest industrialists of our times, was a friend of Adolf Hitler.
Was a Nazi.
He was friends with Father Coughlin. He had an anti-Semitic newspaper, and you know, it's part of the history of Henry Ford, who's done, you know, and the Ford family's done amazing things here in Detroit, but there's a little blemish there.
Yeah.
You know, isn't this just, I mean, it seems to me if you go to schools, from what I can read in Florida, and who have their own little curriculum, don't say gay, don't talk about slavery, don't do anything. It seems as if the South literally is whitewashing history in the hopes that we forget it. And we may, God only knows. And this is not something that is aberrant. This, I think, is something that the Republican-controlled states really want to do. They want to erase the plight of those who have suffered, you know, here, and that we have contributed to as a nation. They're just whitewashing history, and that's the danger that Barb, you know, notes, is that, again, the adage is, if you don't learn from history, you are doomed to repeat it, and we're doing exactly that. I mean, we can draw, you know, historical, you know, comparisons to the late 30s in Europe. We're seeing so much happen here that is going backwards, that unless everybody is in this together to say, hey, let's wake up a little bit, let's read, let's figure out where we are, let's figure out who we are, what our identity is, what the Constitution really meant, why we really left, you know, Britain, you know, why we came here, we're screwed, because there will be that divide and that bloodbath that he promises, that civil war. It can come.
Yeah.
Look, Joel, I mean,
in the first scared to me is that, Joel, you're absolutely right, is that people can run for any office, people can say anything they want, but what the sad commentary is to me, and all of this, is those people get elected. Right. Some of those people get elected. And what does that say about us? That's the saddest thing.
Look at the moderates that are retiring. Joel, listen, I mean, in his first term, Melania trashed Jackie Kennedy's Rose Garden and put up whatever kind of horticultural horror show she had. And I think in the second term, she's going to go ahead and repopulate it with Confederate monuments and statues. So, you know,
warehouses all over the South. So,
well, I mean,
people ask me sometimes, why do you not like the prose stylings of Mr. Mitch Albom? And I will sometimes point out that he doesn't understand the idea that a person can be basically good but still have flaws, right? Or flaws other than, you know, oh, he always forgets to empty the dishwasher. I mean, like serious flaws. So you read him talking about, say, Ernie Harwell, all right? And what a perfect person Ernie Harwell. He was perfect in every way. You will never, ever, ever read a bad thing about Ernie Harwell. But a few years ago, when his wife died and there was his will was, the will went through probate or whatever, we found out some fairly dark things about the children of the Harwells, which to me made them a far more interesting family than just the standard, you know, he's an angel, he's a saint, he's a, you know, he walked among us for briefly and, you know, etc. But they're the same people can't handle the truth about the United States of America. How were we founded? Why did we have 300 years of slavery? Why, you know, why did all of this happen? And what did it mean when we, you know, when we came out of it? How did we deal with our past? That's all really, really important. And this is like the kind of opinion that wouldn't have even been mildly controversial 20 years ago, now is somehow seen as like, oh, I can't let my child learn this stuff. I mean, you know, they have to learn that slavery was good because it was full employment and everybody left with a skill. I mean, it's crazy.
Nobody's gay.
Well,
there's no homosexuality.
It's like a friend of mine. He posted. He said that Confederate statues and memorials are actually performance trophies.
Yeah.
Participation
trophies.
I mean, Germany has been very good about teaching the history of the Holocaust and everything like that, and they embrace that part. That was a part of history, and obviously a dark part of history. But you know, the fact that we had slavery is, pretty horrible. It's hard to,
Yeah, a Florida school board was banning To Kill a Mockingbird because they said it was making children uncomfortable, and it's like, well, then they got it. That means that
that should make you uncomfortable.
Right.
Well, it's interesting because To Kill a Mockingbird is playing here in Detroit with Henry John Boy Thomas in the lead role as Atticus Finch, and a friend of mine went and took her daughter there, and totally forgot that part of the book deals with pedophilia, something that the movie elides. And so she was kind of shocked. Her daughter was like, "Yeah, I mean, okay, it's. She's a young daughter, but they were able to have a conversation about it and say, look, this is the reality instead of trying to sanitize things, and especially with a classic. Well, part of this then also brings us to the whole notion of TikTok and whether the government looking to go ahead and sanitize social media, or at least that's the excuse given, but take it out of the hands of the Chinese. The House of Representatives voted something like 320 to 65 in favor of dissociating Chinese ownership with TikTok, allowing them then to operate if they have an American purchaser of it. And it looks like former Trump Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin is going around saying, I want it, and may even be soliciting Gulf money in order to underwrite this. So we could have Saudi TikTok, Emirati TikTok as well.
Wow.
Well, I don't think the former president can give him any money, but okay.
All right. The number one killer of children in the United States is gun violence. Yeah. But let's ban TikTok. Let's get it done. Let's take care of things.
Yes, because the Bill of Rights starts at the Second Amendment, not the First. Yeah. So,
it is probably spyware. I'm sure there's spyware in there, but what isn't?
I think what's far more alarming about TikTok is the addictive nature of it. All social media, as Steve will be the first to say, has some sort of addictive quality to it. But I think TikTok is like the difference between fentanyl and aspirin in that sense.
Wow. And for the younger generation, it's literally Reuters.
It is. It really, 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 really is. And that's also a little frightening because kids grow up and they keep getting their news from places like TikTok.
No, Nancy, you're absolutely right. Some people would like social media, whether like Facebook or Twitter, whatever. But you're right. When it comes to TikTok, I'm surprised that some people, it has no age range. They're like, I'm addicted to TikTok. Whether they're 70, whether they're 17, whether they're 35, and it just amazes me. This TikTok thing is addictive.
Yeah.
Fishman.
Steve.
I thought the most interesting thing, and I don't know anything about any of that, as you guys know, because I hate social media and I have a flip phone. But what was interesting was it sailed through the House of Representatives, as Saeed said. And then all of a sudden, what happens? Trump flip-flops. And then when you look into it a little further, at least based on what I read, why did he flip-flop? Because there happens to be some hugely wealthy Republican guy whose name escapes me, who has a huge financial interest in TikTok. He probably called the asshole up and said, look, goddammit, I give you a lot of money, change your view. And the next thing you know, you got senators, right? Now it's going to be a tougher call going through the Senate. All because of this one guy who persuades the boss man to tell him that TikTok's okay. It's okay. I just found that fascinating because how often are you going to see that? Particularly with this House of Representatives. 313 votes. They wouldn't vote that Monday is Monday, 313.
So I'm like you, Steve. I don't go to TikTok because I still get my news from, you guessed it, FM radio.
Wow. I refuse to download.
Two Steely Dan references. There you go.
Yep.
Good for you.
I'm at home. I got my piano here. I'm going to go over and play a little Steely Dan when we get done with this.
Do. Oh yeah, there you go. All right, I think Alan, we can now go to a commercial.
Thanks, Charles, for letting me use your gardening supplies. I'll make sure I put it back in the garage. Man, tending to that lawn is a lot of work.
Tell you the truth, Jim, I'm more concerned about keeping this house.
What's going on?
Well, you know, Sarah lost her job 2 months ago, right?
Yeah.
Since we lost that income, the bills have been piling up, and we're so far behind. I don't want to lose the house because of back taxes. I don't know what to do.
I understand. The same thing happened to my sister and her husband when he lost his job. Do you know that the Wayne County Treasurer has plans and programs to help people stay in their homes?
No, I didn't. Tell me about it.
Yeah, go to www.treasure.waynecounty.com and see if you qualify.
What's that site again?
www.treasure.waynecounty.com.
Got it.
Okay, and with that, Alan?
Downtown Detroit, Robert Wells, Smart of the Week.
All right, it is that time of the show to go around the horn and say who's the schmuck. Beverly, we'll start with you.
Mine is Stephanie Lambert. Has to be schmuck of the week. And seriously, though, I mean, when you hear Joel thinking about how we were describing our judicial system, and then you think about how the bar has been lowered in the last couple of years, one thing we can never lower is that our judicial system. He took an oath. He took an oath, and this is a serious matter because really she also disregarded a judge, and the very least she really disregarded the Dominion employees that are at risk. So this is a serious matter, and she's a lawyer. So she's definitely my schmuck. I mean, she's smiling, you know, you're having a moment, you can say she's drinking the Kool-Aid, but it's really serious of what she's alleged to have done. She's my schmuck. Not only this week, she's my schmuck the rest of the year.
Whoa, it's early.
That's early.
Somebody has
Beverly.
to stand up for the people.
Well done.
That's the same. I remember when Rolling Stone magazine in 1985 declared that U2 was the band of the decade, and I was like, "Oh, that's bad." So, but all right, that's okay. You.
Well, they're Steve. That's an Irish band. Just so you.
Beverly, I mean, I think we'll put you in the same category as Joe Namath, having predicted the Super Bowl in '69 right on the money.
Yeah.
So there you go. All right, Fish.
My schmuck of the week was based solely on my reading the New York Times this morning, and it is Senator Robert Menendez, who announced yesterday. It's not just that he announced that he may run as an independent, probably realizing he has the support of about 3% of the people of New Jersey right now. But the thing that was more amazing to me, what qualified him for schmuck of the week, was when he said, after he's acquitted, and I think his trial starts in May, if I'm not mistaken, after he's exonerated was the word he used, then he may contemplate doing some other thing. And I'm thinking to myself, after he's, quote, exonerated, he's going to be sitting with his ass in the can. And what he better be worrying about is having his 3 squares and find a couple of guys to hang around with, because he ain't going to be in a position without having to listen to every single thing. We've read enough, right? And you guys watch TV, so you probably heard enough. This case against he and his wife, if that's not the lock of the year, I don't know what is.
It's
I mean, I've tried a lot of tough cases as a criminal defense lawyer. That case there, if the guy came to see me and told me he had $1 million for a fee, I tell him, save your money, son, because you're gone. That's it.
Yeah.
So
It's overwhelming.
He's my schmuck of the week, not just because he's a crook, but because he could make a statement like that after he's exonerated. And I remember thinking, boy, I hope a lot of people reading this don't know what the word exonerated means, because it ain't never happened.
It's interesting. The New York Times had a story about his 2 children, who happens to be, one is Alicia Menendez.
She's the best. I love her.
Who's an anchor on MSNBC.
She's
and then
great.
his son is a Congress member. And so they're kind of struggling with that, the whole thing that their father's, I got it.
Happened.
Hey, Steve, how many of those gold bars was he standing on when he made that speech? You know?
Yes,
Okay. All right, Barb.
All right. This week, my schmuck of the week is the tiny smile of Mike Johnson. When you look at their budget, their proposal. See if I can. Cuts $1.5 trillion from Social Security, raises Medicare costs, and cuts the caps on pharmacy fees. It cuts Medicaid, ACA, Obamacare, and the children's health insurance by $4.5 trillion over 10 years, creates $5.5 trillion in tax cuts for the rich and corporations, eliminates all clean energy incentives, raises the Social Security retirement age to 69, and there he sits with that little fucking smirk.
Wow, 69.
And there he is.
As somebody,
into Jesus, got that little, so
someone who is looking forward to getting her first Social Security check this summer, I have this to say to old Bob.
Oh, I know. and yes, so his little fucking face.
Unreal.
Odious. All right, Joel.
Okay, here's what I got. This is a relatively recent event. The Lions have a quarterback, Cam Sutton, who they paid a lot of money to, 3-year deal for $39 million. And he was arrested for domestic abuse, apparently strangling his wife. And it drives me nuts. One, the domestic abuse drives me nuts. But secondly, these athletes, he knows he's a high-profile guy with a shitload to lose. And he's going to lose probably $18 million in this deal. You know when you're in that position, you have to tread carefully. You know what the league is going to do. You know what the team is going to do, which is going to kick you off. And that's what they did with Cam. And I'm sorry to see him go. It's a decent corner, but this week he's my schmuck of the week.
So apparently he's got a $10 million guaranteed contract, but from what I understand, the NFL can find a morals clause in the contract, which will probably then invalidate that. Yeah.
Well, they'll try to get some salary cap, I think, from that is what they're trying to do. But
I don't think he was.
They can't get back. That's $19 million.
I don't think he was that great as a cornerback.
He's a number 2 corner best.
Yeah. Well.
Right.
Zeigesund, as we say.
Yes. Not a good look.
Jared Kushner. Jared Kushner for his very Kushnerian plan for Gaza, which is to bulldoze is it Negev? Am I pronouncing it correctly?
Negev.
Desert, a spot in the Negev desert, push all the Palestinians into the desert, then redevelop Gaza, which has some really nice waterfront, and presumably put up condos and hotels. And, it's like ethnic cleansing. Really, it's got waterfront, man. Right. It is worth doing. Yeah, so Jared Kushner, the most transparently just weird and just. He's like a robot, with that milky white skin and
And his father, his father served a couple years in prison.
Oh, I know he did. Yeah.
Yeah.
Pardoned, now pardoned, but yeah. So,
all right, Allan.
I'm going to go with besides the Kentucky losers last night, I'm going to go with another Kentucky loser, and that would be Senator Rand Paul, who is ripping Donald Trump for endorsing Mike Rogers, saying Mike Rogers is one of the worst deep state candidates around. I mean, Mike Rogers. Look, Mike Rogers endorsed Trump reluctantly. I don't think he cares for Trump, but he knew the only pathway to winning the primary would be to endorse. But Rand Paul's calling him a deep state candidate, which is just fucking
ridiculous,
insane.
Yeah.
I mean, it's one thing to call us a blue state candidate, but okay.
I'm going to go stand in the snow if I find myself agreeing with Rand Paul. I'm sorry.
Or, a two peninsula state, but deep state. All right, Allan, that was yours.
Yes, Rand Paul.
Oh, that was,
okay. All right. I thought you had a second one. No, I'm sorry.
Oh, no.
Well,
I do have Marco Rubio for even entertaining the idea that he might be a VP candidate. I mean, little Marco and the Dems would have a field day running all the shit that he said about Trump.
Yeah.
There you go.
I mean, I don't know if that would be enough for them. I think Trump then would jettison him on November the 4th and put in another VP candidate on the spot. Okay, so I've got a few schmucks here. First of all, our very own Madonna for scolding a wheelchair-bound fan at her Los Angeles concert for not standing up, chastising her. Then when she finally realized that she was, in fact, wheelchair-bound, she did apologize. But sticking with Los Angeles, Bill Maher, who fired his CAA to represent him because he wasn't invited to a pre-Oscars party at the home of CAA CEO Brian Lord. But the schmuck of the schmucks has to go to the French Football Association, which has prohibited or forbidden Muslim players in the French league from fasting during the month of Ramadan, even though there is no discernible drop in the quality of their play. But just to go ahead and show what laïcité and those French values are like, we're going to go ahead and assert this. This in contrast to the English league, which actually allows the players, at the behest of non-Muslim players and coaches, to allow for, and of course you know that soccer does not have timeouts, to go ahead and very briefly and discreetly break their fast with a date and some water or Gatorade and keep on going after that. So for the French, one of many reasons, you are my schmucks. So there you go. All right. Thank you, Layla, for the compliment about it being a good show as always, and thank you to all of you for making it a good show. Thank you, Beverly Watts. Thank you, Steve Fishman. Thank you, Joel Sklar. Thank you, Barb Ingalls. Thank you, Nancy Derringer, and thank you. And with the last word, Allan Lengel.
Drive home safely, particularly today.
And safely and carefully. That's right. Take care, everybody, and have a great week.